Hello to all the comic fans, Marvel geeks, and all the nerds in between. Welcome to another episode of Vigilante Vibes Podcast, where we talk all things Marvel, along with other fandoms, but without the toxicity that's taken up way too much space in each and every fandom. I'm your host, Megan Nicole, and we're here to have another episode of Elevating the Nerdy Voices of the Rainbow, where we lift up the voices of the LGBTQIA plus communities. Today, I'm probably one of the funniest people I've met on the internet. If you have seen any of his posts, any of his comments, then you know exactly what I mean. Please welcome Andrew.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited you're here. We've been in contact for so long, but now we're finally doing it.
Yeah, great. I'm very grateful. So thank you for this opportunity in this space. It's very much appreciated, not by me, but I think by everybody. Yeah, it's great. It's great to have.
I appreciate that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Okay, so my name is Andrew. I am turning 45 this year.
I
So
don't believe that.
yeah, I feel
Cap.
it. I feel it. I feel it. So I'm a gay man. I have been reading comics since I was about 5. My dad and I moved from. I was born in Germany. Bad breakup between my mum and dad. My mum got my brother. My dad got me. We came over here. Very traumatic, and I found comfort in comics. Back then, you didn't get the American import, so what would happen would be if a comic was very popular, a UK publishing house would reprint it. So, Secret Wars. It had all the characters in. It blew my mind as a 5 year old. That then continued to Secret Wars 2, which had Alpha Flight as the backup story. Was absolutely crazy for that. And then Batman Monthly, Superman Monthly. And then I started getting into the American ones as well. So the first kind of the first kind of exposure to anything gay in comics, back then there was systemic homophobia. It was at my school, all my friends, the teachers, my dad. I was at Sea Cadets, that was homophobic. The instructors were homophobic. I never passed, so people knew. So I got a lot of that. But just in general, it was just you accepted it. And then when I came out and found my people, at work I was semi out. I was an estate agent, and that was very homophobic. And who were you going to complain to? Who you met up with your gay friends and you complained to them, but there was nobody on your side. There was, no social media. We weren't organised, and there certainly wasn't representation in comic books. That was never really an option. It was never something considered. Now, the first time that I got exposed to something gay was when North Star came out around 92. It was printed in the UK paper that there is a gay superhero. Now, I remember cutting it out, and I was only 12 at the time, and sticking it, blue tacking it to the back of my door. Now, I don't know if that's because I knew I was gay, or if it was because I loved Alpha Flight, and it was the first time. I mean, nobody knew Alpha Flight. Nobody knew Alpha Flight in the UK. So there was, there was that until around the late 90s. Wizard magazine. Do you know what Wizard magazine was? It was like before the internet. It was where you got all of your comic book information. They would do their dream casting of an X-Man film, and it was a US publication, but
Oh.
imported into the UK, and it was very expensive. And I would read it cover. I've still got them all cover to cover, and they kept talking about the Authority, and I thought, well, they don't look like superheroes. And then Apollo and Midnight are a gay couple, and I was like, what? Just didn't. It was. I was shocked. Went out, and it's still my all-time favorite comic book ever. It was the first like widescreen comic book. It was nothing I had ever seen before. Yes, it had gay characters in, but it wasn't just that. It was their power sets were unusual, and they fought God, and it was mind
It
blowing.
was dark. It wasn't the usual
No,
superhero uppityness.
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. And I adore it. If there's meant to be an Authority film coming out, and then it was going to be by James Gunn for the new DCU. I was very excited about that, but I thought I believe it when I see it. Maybe it will be animated. I don't know what's going on with it now, sadly. I know the engineer is in the new Superman film, and she's a very cool, probably my favourite member of the Authority. Um, but um, but but that was really really big. And then I remember North Star appearing on a front cover of X Men, and I was sorry, that's my cat, Mr.
Oh,
Renfield.
you're
Um,
fine.
and I got two copies of the comic, and I got one copy. I took off the cover and I framed it because I thought it will never happen again. A gay character on the front cover of an X Men comic, and I had it framed. And in I was going to drag it out, but I can't find it anywhere, and I haven't seen it for years, so I don't know where it is. And I even wrote to the gay press about it because I was like, "Oh my god, he's a gay character who's on the front cover of X Men," and I thought hopefully he'll join the X Men. They don't have a speedster. I know Quicksilver is kind of sometimes a member of X Factor, but
Yeah.
no main team. But that didn't, that didn't happen. And there were the whole Iceman being gay thing. I remember reading a couple of panels where it really hinted at the subtext was there. He goes shopping with Jean Grey, and she says Scott doesn't want to come with me. He hates shopping. And Bobby says something like, "Well, men hate shopping, but I've come along because you know." And she's
Yeah.
like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he's like, I just thought you would know." And he's holding a cup with his pinky out. And we look back now and we can see, but it was a big deal back then. I was like, is Iceman gay? And
Yeah.
obviously now he's come out. So there were hints back then. Was it enough to justify him coming out as he is? I would have preferred a bit more of a build up, but more representation is great. But back then, like the DC message boards is where I would go online to talk about comics. And there was talk about Wonder Woman. Like, wouldn't she be bi? Wouldn't she have had some sort of feelings for a woman? Wouldn't she have seen gay relationships on Paradise Island? And the reaction was, no, stop trying to inject that into things. You're trying to make something that it's not. And some
It,
people
it
mentioned,
it's an island full of women. Like they
yeah,
have
like,
needs.
yes,
It's
come on, like,
like
absolutely. And that's an organic, logical thing, surely.
yeah.
And that's where we are now, and that's great. But also Hercules was mentioned, and people were like, "No, that's mythology Hercules. That's not Marvel Hercules. They're very different." So there was there was pushback, and it started gaining momentum. Like with Batwoman, she was first introduced as another, rather big breasted, lipstick lesbian, male gaze kind of thing. And then when that comic came out and she had that bob and she was wearing tuxedos and stuff, and I knew lesbians like her, and it blew my mind. It was great representation, really good representation. And then we had Hulkling and Wiccan. Well, it was
Oh,
Hulkling and Asgardian at the time, and people were like, "Are they a couple?" That was all over the internet. It took a bit too long, maybe, for them to kiss on page. It was quite a few years. We I think at the time I was grateful for any crumbs I could get, and I held them dearly. Like when Willow came out on Buffy, which is my all-time favorite television show ever. It was really big. It really spoke to me as a young person, as a young gay person. Should people have done more? Should it have been pushed? I mean, it was a very different world back then. I can't begin to tell people that don't know how different it was.
yeah.
You just you just took it on the chin. The homophobia. There was so much of it everywhere that you just took it. You just had to take it. And now obviously we don't, and it is on the increase now. It's a very scary world. I took refuge in comics and cartoons. I was, I'm autistic. I was undiagnosed for most of my childhood, so it was tough going. And then realizing that I'm gay, you could just escape. But now we see things through a very queer eye with comic books, with lots of characters coming out as bi, or there's. I have to point out that there were people like the late great Dwayne McDuffie, who does not get talked about enough. He pushed for gay and trans characters not to be the victims, not to be the villains, but to be represented. And he was a phenomenal writer, and I don't think he gets talked about enough. So there were allies when it before it was cool to be seen as an ally, and I'm grateful for things like that. But I don't collect comics as much as I used to because I was spending £25 a week. So I don't know what that is in dollars. I think that's maybe $35,
Probably
maybe.
like 33, 34,
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, so that's every week, and I was moving around a lot, so it was a lot of comics to move around. So I get trades. I need to get the Alan Scott one that deals with him being in the closet in the 1940s. I think it won a GLAD award, but don't quote me on that. It's won an award, and I should have researched, but it has won an award. And there's a difference between, I think, my UK friends and my US friends that read comics. With the likes of Shadowcat and Magic getting together around the same time as Betsy and Rachel got together, the UK lot kind of went, okay, it's slightly it came across slightly like all women are slightly bisexual. It felt a little bit like that, but with my US friends, they absolutely loved it. So I think British people were more cynical. I think we're a little bit untrusting of progress.
Harder to please.
Harder to please. I would rather be the mindset of my American friends because especially my friend Jeff, who finds joy in most things.
Hmm.
And I love that about him. Where I'm harder to please. I don't like change. But we've got Wiccan in the Marvel cinematic universe now. Fastos was gay in the Eternals, which weirdly enough is my favourite MCU film. Even though it's very different to the source material, I rewatch it all the
It's
time.
a beautiful movie, and
Yeah,
I loved how they didn't make a huge thing of him and his
no,
family. It
no,
was just, this is another family. That's how
this
I
is
think it should be.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that film. I went in I didn't even see it at the cinema because I didn't like the look of the trailers, and I have gotten out the habit of going to the cinema, which is a problem because I want to support films, especially important films. But our local cinema has closed because it was literally crumbling, so I have to kind of go to the next town
Mm.
now, and that I'm lazy. And so, but I saw Eternals, and I thought, my gosh, I really enjoyed that. And then I watched it again, and then again, and it's become my favourite one. But we do have gay, queer characters in the MCU now. I mean, DC have to do a bit of catch up. Is it a tough sell? Is homophobia, queerphobia, transphobia on the increase? I'm going to say yes.
Absolutely it is.
I can see it. I don't know whether people are now more emboldened with Trump. I won't get political, but also the startling rise of the more extreme right in Europe. It's getting a foothold. It's scary. It's scary times. It's bonkers times, but it's online. It's everywhere. All the names under the sun, and I do report them, but they very rarely get taken down. And
Never do.
and in fandom, like you said, I just and I find myself engaging in it because it riles me so much, and that's not healthy. I don't think that's a healthy thing. But I'm torn between. standing up for myself and for trans siblings and for non-binary people and for queer community. I've and not needlessly getting on that and then letting it spoil what you love.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, Facebook pages like yourself are a haven for people to kind of go, I know this wasn't particularly popular, but I really love this character, or I can't wait for this film, or, where other people will be passive aggressive or
The laugh
really,
reacts.
yeah,
The
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I do that. Like when people are like, there shouldn't be any gay heroes, I'll laugh react to that, or another MCU entry, I'll laugh react to that because
Yeah.
it's
Those I'm like, time to get to work.
yeah,
I'm ready.
yeah,
Oh my god, it took so long for the MCU to that phase to get out. I'm over it.
yes,
But now we're in a scarier phase, which is like I'm not sure if more people are homophobic, transphobic, or they just have the balls now to say it out loud.
they're emboldened.
Yeah.
I want, yeah, I wonder if it's always been there and they felt that the tide had turned without them, so they wouldn't say anything. But now, they do say stuff. It's not nice. Yeah, it's. I don't know what's coming. It does scare me. The world. I say to my partner's older than me, so he lived through. He was openly gay during the AIDS epidemic, so he saw real horrible things. But even he thinks things are really bad. They never used to be this bad. There was always hope, and now you just kind of look to the future and think, crikey, that's worrying. Yeah,
Yeah.
but fight the battles, but also look after yourself. I have to be told sometimes to go and look at nothing, go and read a comic, go and watch cartoons, go and do things. Like one of my favorite fandoms, favorite franchises is Mortal Kombat, and we have a gay
Mm.
character with Kung Jin in Mortal Kombat X. He might be coming in the latest game, Mortal Kombat One. There might be another combat pack. We don't know, but the hate towards that character, and we all know why.
Yeah.
We all know why. Just say it. Just if you don't like gay people, at least just say it. Don't try and dress it up as to being something that it's.
Bad writing.
Yeah, yeah. For me as a gay player, I was like, there's a gay Mortal Kombat character, and I know that Tanya and Melina have this thing, but Tanya's her whole personality is that she will betray, and I think Melina is more complex than that. So I don't know. I in my head canon. Do you know Jarek from Mortal
Uh,
Kombat 4? He was a
yes.
Kano apprentice and basically just had Kano's moves. That's why he's hated. And in one of the many endings, he gets dropped off a cliff, and as he plummets, he says, "I'm so gay," because casual homophobia. But what if he was actually gay and him and Kung Jin, when Kung Jin was a bit of a baddie, used to have a thing? That's like Romeo and Romeo right there. Like I'd love to see that. So would that be well accepted? No.
No.
No. I don't know how to turn it around. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm 45. It had always been getting better, but I can see that it's not. It's going backwards, and that's scary.
It is, but I mean, it's improved before. It will always come in waves. It
Yeah,
will always
you're
be
right.
something until they find the next person to hate. And which is scary because it's like, why do you need anyone to hate at all? These
Yeah,
people aren't hurting you.
no.
Like, you being gay does not hurt me at all. I'm okay. It makes
Yeah,
no sense.
yeah. I just want to live my life. I
Yeah.
think that's all. Um, you know. and be able to marry the man that I love. Obviously, gay marriage for gay people in the UK is pretty certain. There's, we hear things that it's under attack in the US. Maybe is it Idaho that have launched a repeal to say that marriage is between man and woman.
Dude,
I
I don't
think
even know. I
I
don't
think
watch like over
um
the
yeah,
traditional family
yeah,
thing. I'm in a traditional marriage.
yeah,
I have a husband, and
yeah.
we're both like, okay, like our genitalia doesn't make us like
No.
traditional. This is weird.
It's yeah, it's a crazy world. But there's more work to be done. As an autistic person, I would like more representation. I think that's more difficult because it's very difficult, I think, to get autistic characters correct. And like the thing with autism on the rise, it's way more common than people think. Way more
Oh,
common.
I agree.
Uh, you know, when I read comics, like the things that stood out to me when reading Secret Wars was Monica Rambeau as Captain Marvel. So I live in the south of England. Growing up, I didn't really see people of color. I think at my high school there was one, yeah, maybe one black girl. So when I read Secret Wars and you saw Monica Rambeau leading the Avengers, being very powerful and standing up to the likes of Iron Man, with that afro and that costume, it really blew my mind. And I think then going on with Storm, reading New Warriors with Night Thrasher and Rage, it was a part of humanity I didn't see. And I think that was quite impactful. And that's very important to show, you might not have any gay friends, but you might like this gay character or this character that is gay. You might not know any trans people or know that you know any trans people, but there might be a trans character that will speak out to you and you'll have some connection with. Because growing up, I didn't have gay characters to connect to. So I connected to characters for other reasons. You don't have to have like for like, but it's nice to have like for like.
Yeah.
It is nice. It is nice to be represented. And I think that's a universal thing. I think that's we all like to see ourselves. Yeah.
It's something that's taken for granted because, a straight white person has all the representation in the world. So we don't see it as like, oh, I can relate to this person. That's why I like them. They kind of write it off like, oh, they're badass. They have great powers. It's
Yeah.
amazing. But then there's people who aren't represented like you said, like an autistic character. The closest we've gotten is Reed Richards in a different universe, and Reed is the worst. So like that sucks.
But he's now hot. I think with Pedro, with John, with In
Yeah.
Rivals, he's canonically hot. So
Yeah.
that makes me forgive all of his red flags, which is probably why I've gotten into so many trouble in the past. But I do like that fact that Reed is hot. I can't wait for the new movie. I can't wait for Thunderbolt starring my husband David Harbour.
I was wondering when this would get brought up because
We are married. He doesn't like to talk about it. In fact, if you mentioned it to him, he would probably pretend like he didn't even know who I was. But like, I really like the Red Guardian character. Like, I loved What If. I love animation. And some were stronger than the others, but I loved seeing the Red Guardian and Bucky in season three. I think that's a prime example of the MCU improving a character. Because did anyone really remember Red Guardian before he was in the MCU? Did he really have a personality? But now he does, and he's played by someone that's very handsome.
he's very handsome. I feel like his looks are so underrated.
Yeah, I
But
think
now that he's dressed in the suit, everyone's like, Oh, he is hot. I'm like, he's always been hot.
He's
Like,
always been
this is
hot.
rude. Like,
Yeah, I mean, he's always been a gay bear. Yeah, absolutely. Very popular amongst my gay friends with Stranger Things. Yeah, absolutely. So looking forward to that. And obviously looking forward to the new Superman film. James Gunn, if you're watching this, and I just assume that you are, Creature Commandos in the UK, please. Don't make me go on a VPN. I don't
y'all
really.
still haven't seen it?
No! I like. I don't like. I like to watch things officially. My friend kind of take the mickey out of me because I'll wait until I can see things properly.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's right.
So you're a big pop collector?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really bad with collect. Like, I'm a big believer in buying albums and buying physical media. So buy the Blu-ray, buy the DVD if it's not on Blu-ray, buy the album. But I'm a hypocrite because everything I have is on streaming because I'm lazy and very disorganized. I'll pre-order a big album like the Gaga one, or I'm as basic a gay as you can get. Madonna, Kylie, Gaga. Do you know what I mean? Even though I'm on the radio, so I have to be more mainstream. I'll listen to stuff and I'll be like, God, I feel my age. And I feel a little bit like that with current comics. Sometimes somebody somebody commented on something that I had commented and said, Andrew Quick, just say that you're old and you don't like change. And I have never felt more seen in my life. Absolutely sums me up. So even when I read modern comics, I do feel my age. I do feel that I'm a 45-year-old queen. And I think that's a bit like that with pop. I live vicariously through the kids, the younglings, the gaylings, the young queer kids. That's it's their world now, for better and for worse. Sorry about the mess. Yeah, yeah, we tried our best. Yeah,
Some of us did. Some
yeah,
of us tried our best.
yeah,
It's on you guys now.
yeah. I do feel a bit like that. But yeah, yeah,
Well, I mean, I think we all kind of look at all the new media, like comics, the movies, everything, and you're kind of like, how old am I? Because I see these new comics that are like the kids are talking in their little kid lingo, and I'm like, the fuck are you saying? Like the
yeah.
new X
What?
Men are
Yeah,
like the new Outliers, the ones in the Uncanny X Men. They talk, they're so modern. I'm
yeah.
like, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but like, y'all didn't have to make me feel that way when I read it,
No.
though.
Like, excuse me while I go and Google what the hell you're talking about because I do not know. And I think there is a case that you know I think, oh God, I feel I'm just like was in my 20s until I then hang around with people in their 20s and their energy and their hopefulness and their resilience. And I don't have anything. I'm a dry husk of that. So I do notice my age. But comics. You hear comics are doing badly. Manga's taken over. I can't get into manga. I've never been able to get into manga.
I can't either.
Having said that, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust is one of my all-time favorite films ever. I think it's a masterpiece, and the first two Devilman films as well, and the Street Fighter animated movie. But that's it. The rest, I think, I'm too conventional. I'm too straight laced. If they're too wacky, they lose me. And even with modern comics, there's so many new characters coming out, and a lot of the time they're legacy characters, and I get a little bored of that. I think it's difficult because creators they create for Marvel or DC, they don't own the rights, and they get very little percentage. And if it's a massive character, they're kind of shut out of that. So I think there is, well, I'm not going to create a character that you could make millions off of. I'll just make one that that you'll already automatically own the rights to. Like another Spider character. Back in my day, there was only one Spider Man. That was it. And now look at the Spider Verse, which, you know, when that happened, that comic event, that was, I loved that. I mean, there are runs, there are books that I reread. Mainly because my memory's really bad and I can't really remember them, so I have to reread them. But that's one of them. When Young Avengers appeared, I can't begin to tell you how big that was, especially when it was like, is Hulkling a man or a woman? Because they seem really concerned with Asgardian. And I believe that the original premise for Hulkling was male that turns into a female when they Hulk up. And then they just said, well, why don't we just keep them male and have them as a gay relationship? But you know, I'm disappointed that we won't get Iron Lad in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. When this Young Avengers movie comes around, they're all going to be middle aged. I mean, it's
That's what I said. There's average age Avengers. I
yeah,
think they'll be named champions, and I think they should go with a series, not a movie. But I also think after Secret Wars, there's going to be a soft reboot. So
I
all
do.
the characters we missed out on,
Yeah,
I think Iron Lad. I
yeah,
think I want to see Bucky and Natasha get together because
yeah,
like they're
yeah,
both so hot.
yeah, yeah. I do think there's going to be a soft reboot. I don't know what that means about the actors in their roles. I mean, people are getting. The problem I have with the Marvel Cinematic Universe was that they introduced way too many characters and then left us dangling. Like, okay, so She Hulk, Moon Knight, you know, and, you know,
Yeah.
Patriot, you know, he's really important in the comics and nobody talks about him. What, there should have been a Young Avengers film by now. They messed up the whole Krang storyline. I was kind of unimpressed with Krang because the Krang the Conqueror that we know in Quantumania when he gets defeated by ants, and I know he's not at his weakest, but I think that damaged the character moving forward as a big bad, and I think they took too long. And I know Thanos was in the making, but with how quickly we consume now, before I think when it was, you know, Iron Man 1 and Incredible Hulk and stuff, we were consuming things slower. Now because of Endgame, we want it all now. We want, you know, what's the next thing? You watch something and you want to know what the end credit scene is for because you're already interested in in the next thing. And I think that kind of spurred Marvel to introduce a load of characters, but then didn't follow up. And I know I'm biased, but to not do anything with the Eternals is really disappointing. I mean, it took me by surprise at how much I love that film, and I get people's issues with it. I'm, you know, there were people that were a fan of the characters and said they were very different. Yeah, I don't particularly like change. There were people that just said it was boring. I disagree, but use them in something. You know,
Yeah.
do a TV show like it probably should have been. There needed to be an Avengers film sooner, I think, featuring She Hulk and Moon Knight and Sam as Captain America, and rather than nothing. And then are they all going to be in Doomsday and Secret Wars? Like it's a what are you just going to ignore some characters? What was the end game by introducing so many?
I think they did way too much. I remember Kevin Feige saying that the way to get over superhero fatigue is to try different things, and I think that's what he was doing, but he did it completely wrong. With
Yeah,
the Eternals, now is the time just to let some of those characters show up somewhere.
yeah,
Like put one of them, put Cersei, give her a cameo in Thunderbolts, like
yeah.
little things,
Something.
so we don't completely ignore that it
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and with with Moon Knight, I remember something coming out maybe like a year or two ago that he's supposed to be he was supposed to be in Kang Dynasty, but now it's like it's Doomsday.
Doomsday, yeah.
But with Kang, how can anyone be so stupid as to put an entire phase on one man's shoulders?
Yeah, yeah,
Kang
yeah.
is the one character you can use multiple actors for. You could have
Yes.
had, yeah, you could have had a different actor in each time we've seen him, so it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
But then you went and made a whole football stadium of Jonathan
Yes.
Majors.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
Crazy.
They've really shot themselves in the foot. Russell Downey Jr. as Doom. I mean, some people are saying he's not playing an Iron Man variant. How could he not? Are they just going to pretend that this Doom looks exactly like Tony? He must be a Tony Stark variant. And that's a shame because you really should be using the real Doom. I don't want an Iron Man variant being the first MCU Doom. I want Doom, but you should have finished Kang. We should have had an
Yeah.
Iron Lad. We should have had the Young Avengers by now, and it's all very frustrating. Yeah, so
What if he's not even Doom? He's just a that's just what Doom's Doom bots look like.
maybe, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there must be something. I mean, it does feel a little bit desperate
Yes.
because when I saw the reveal, I was like, oh. So not only are you getting rid of Kang, you're bringing in Doom. Okay, that's brilliant. I love Doctor Doom. He's one of the best characters. But you're not even
Absolutely.
bringing in Doctor Doom, Doctor Doom. You're bringing in a Stark variant. Maybe. And if you're not, and the first time that we get an actual proper Victor Von Doom is going to be by the same guy that played Iron Man, and you're not going to mention it, you're just going to attack these. That wouldn't work because
No.
that just would not work. So it has to be a Stark variant, and I just don't think that's what people wanted.
No one wanted it, but I think when it was announced, that kind of told me, okay, there's going to be a soft reboot because this is not the MCU's Doom.
No.
But I know that it's, I know the Russos have, I trust them 100%.
Yes.
Whatever they want to do, perfect.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I do try. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But like, I know that they want this one point where Peter Parker looks at
Yeah.
Stark Doom and says, Mr. Stark?
Yeah.
And
Of
he's like,
course.
who is that?
Yeah.
I
Of
know they
course.
want this to happen.
Yeah. And Peter will be crushed with everything that he's lost. The MCU, Peter, it's going to be devastating, and that's drama, and I love that. But I also think that people are just waiting for the X-Men now.
Yeah.
You know, X-Men '97. I can't begin to tell you how excited I was watching that and how many times I've rewatched it. Very excited about the inclusion of the X-Men. A little bit worried because we've got Ms. Marvel as a mutant, so she's going to be the same age as Scott unless they're going to make them slightly older. Are they coming in from an alternative timeline like Fantastic Four?
Or it's a period piece and it's 20 years ago.
Yeah, maybe that would be good. And
Yeah.
what's the um what's the lineup going to be like? I think if they're going that they kind of were a little bit established, I think maybe the giant size X-Men 1 team looking for the original team. I think
Ooh.
maybe that's what I'd
Mm.
quite like. Or the original team. And I know, you know, Humanoid Beast is a little bit boring. Angel before Archangel isn't the most exciting power set, you know. And this is where we're now in the problem where the best approach might be to be slow and steady and build up. But because we are now in just society in general, consume, 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 release an album, already a brand new single that's not on the album for the next album. What's the next movie that's coming out? This is the 2026 release dates. For you know, we're just so quick to consume, and we know these characters. I think there might be a pressure to rush through to get to the good stuff. And there's good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff there. I mean, you know, even Grant Morrison's New X-Men, that's one of the comic book moments that I remember reading, and I remember the destruction of Genosha and being really upset by it, and Emma Frost becoming a goodie again, with diamond skin and the whole affair thing. I just loved it. I loved Zorn as well, and I hated it when he was revealed to be Magneto, because there was a comic. It was just a one issue where Zorn goes to Mutant Town, and you see it in a monologue. And there's a young mutant that his mutant power is he's basically a monster, and the town basically attacks him and kills him, and Zorn has to try and process that as somebody that's been kept inside, and if you had just let him grow, this mutant would have been beautiful. So then when it was revealed that Zorn was Magneto, I was like, but that issue. And it's one of my all-time favourite standalone issues. I think it's beautifully written. I loved Zorn's power set. It was different. Grant Morrison did write The Authority, and I think I can see in their writing, I can see similarities with the scope of it. Although that Zorn issue wasn't written by Grant, I think that was one of the biggest disappointments, that Magneto was just a baddie again, because we've evolved past that now. Magneto's more. That's why I like the Krakoa era. That was unlike anything we've seen. What, a council of all mutant, including good ones. There was a little things that I was not particularly happy with, like Sabretooth, who has murdered and raped, and he's kind of forgiven because he's a mutant. I don't know if I would be silent on the Silent Council with some of the choices that they had on there. But it was great, and I think the comics are maybe struggling now without Krakoa, a little bit. Yeah.
Well, the new stuff from the Ashes, I will say I'm so pleasantly surprised by some of the stuff I've read. I think
Oh,
Gail Simone's Uncanny X-Men is some of the best X-Men writing I've read in a while.
I need
Uh
to. I read like the first issue of each, but
huh.
I wait for trades now because
Yeah.
I get frustrated just reading a comic, and then I'll be like, "Oh, I don't know what to do with myself. I need a bit more of a continuation story." So when the trades, when I have a moment, I will sit down and read them.
Yeah. I think you should really check out Storm.
Yeah,
That.
because they've really made her mainstream now. Like,
Yeah.
my two favorite X Men are, and I used to get teased about this at school. Cyclops and Storm, and they were like, "Why do you like Cyclops? He's so boring." And then the
I
whole kind of
love
where he
Cyclops.
went became militant, and I loved all of that. And they were like, "Storm, how gay is that? Why do you like Storm?" I was like, "You've just said it," but she's so overly dramatic, and I remember her from Secret War, so there was that yeah, and now she has long been a long time coming, her moment to shine, and her popularity has grown, and people see her for the character that she is, and which I love. Um, you know, you could say the female X Men are arguably more interesting than the male. Psylocke. I don't. I'm old. I don't like change. I did like Psylocke in the Ninja Body, and I did like her with Warren, because there were two people that had their bodies abused against their will by villains, and and they came from privileged families, and I thought that was a good pairing. Yeah, so it'll be very interesting. And you hear all these rumors of who they're going to cast, and you're like, yay! And then they suggest someone else, and you're like, oh! And then they suggest someone else, and you're like, yay! And then, so until you get that official word, but I do think people are just waiting for the X Men.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my cat, Mr. Renfield. Come on, buddy. I know. Sorry.
No, you're
He
fine.
thinks the podcast is about him.
It should be, to
It
be honest
should
with
be, shouldn't
you.
it, buddy? So yeah, I think people are just waiting for X-Men now. But I am really excited for Fantastic Four. The only thing with Fantastic Four is the thing looks a little small. Shouldn't he be able to look at the Hulk? Not as big as the Hulk, nowhere near, but he seems a bit small.
Well, there's
He
a
looks
couple
great.
things with him. I think he looks amazing.
Yeah,
He does look a little on the small side, but I'm curious to see what they do with that
yeah,
because I think they're pretending the Hulk doesn't exist at this point since he's Professor Hulk or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But I just need his voice to come down one octave.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
mate. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so. I mean, I have a soft spot for Pedro. I think he's the prime example of someone that's just gotten more and more beautiful as he's gotten older.
Absolutely. Oh my god.
And so I was really thrilled with him with Reed. People say he's everywhere, he's in everything. I don't disagree with that, but I enjoy watching him. So I didn't know that Vanessa Kirby was British. I didn't know she was
I
English.
had no idea.
I was like, why is she talking with an English accent in an interview? And Gavin, my partner, probably said, she's English. I was like,
I had no
oh, is
idea.
she? I just didn't know. Mr. Renfield, down, please, buddy. Um, so I am really looking forward to that. Galactus, maybe on the small side, maybe a little bit.
Well, he can change sizes based on
Yeah,
what
I mean,
temperature.
at least he's not a cloud.
Oh, that's all. Look, I saw the outline. I was like, I don't care what you do with the rest of this movie. I'm good.
Yeah,
But we also get Joseph Quinn as the Torch, who I've been pulling for since the beginning because he has such range and he's just so cute. I want such good things for him.
I saw. I recently saw because we've been. My partner and I. He had a heart attack and he's had heart failure, so he's been very poorly. That happened last
Yeah.
June. So we're really behind in everything: TV shows, horror films, which is what we watched together. So we watched A Quiet Place Day One quite recently, and he was brilliant. I loved that film.
I did too.
It has a cat in it, so of course I do.
I know.
Yeah, but everybody was brilliant, and he was really good in that, and really good in Stranger Things. He's very likable, which I think because of some of the things Johnny says, you need someone that's likable, because you have to then like him despite the fact that he can be a little bit of a jerk sometimes. So I think that casting's brilliant. I am nervous that it's been released so close to Superman.
I think that's only going to help both movies
Do you think
because
it's going to be a bit of a
I I think they don't
party?
even need to promote it. I
Yeah,
think fan base is doing it for him. They're like, "Oh, this one's gonna win. This one's gonna be better."
yeah.
But Kevin knew what he was doing because it was originally Thunderbolts that comes out in that month, and then when Superman was announced, he switched them, and I was like, "Oh, he brought out the big guns."
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I will. I'll be there opening weekend for both of those. I'm a little worried about Superman. So before Man of Steel, I was a massive Zack Snyder fan. Watchmen, 300, Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, sorry. Um, even Sucker Punch. I loved all of that.
I had this argument yesterday, and someone said Sucker Punch was trash, and I was like, "Just get out of here."
Yeah, no, I
I don't
like
need that
it.
negativity
Yeah,
in
I
my head.
like it. I don't get the hate. I don't get the hate with that. And then when he was announced to be doing Superman, I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited. And I didn't like Man of Steel. I
No.
really didn't. I wanted to, but I really didn't. I just thought it was a misstep. And then was very excited for Batman versus Superman, and I liked parts of it. Basically, Wonder Woman when she fights Doomsday, I was absolutely crazy insane for that. And then Zack Snyder's Justice League, I really like, and I was a supporter of DC because I love DC. I loved the Aquaman movie, but yeah, there was a lot of misfires, and it needed to be restarted. I kept saying it's not working. It's not working. You need to do a hard reboot. And James Gunn is a fantastic writer and a fantastic director. I don't know if I'd put him in charge of an entire universe. because I think he might need somebody above him to rein him in a little bit, maybe. Um, but I'm going to support Superman. I'm a little bit worried about the costume. It's a bit baggy. I don't like the long cape. I don't like the big trunks. It's not my favourite.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of other heroes in it. The rumoured plot, I'm a bit worried about as well. It kind of sounds like it's the boys from the comic, but I won't go into that because I don't want to. I support it because I love the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. I love Brightburn, which he didn't direct. I believe he wrote or produced. I think he wrote it. Slither, I've always liked James Gunn stuff, so I'm excited. And these new cartoons, Starfire. I love Starfire.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, I mean she's so. I'm a big fan of deep cut favourites. I want to hear your favourite. I don't want to hear Iron Man, Wolverine, Black Panther, Superman. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear Julie Carpenter, Spider Woman, and Starfire and stuff like that. The Titans movie, I started rewatching the Titans TV show. I kind of only like season one. Raven, Cyborg, and Starfire, as well as Dick Grayson, are kind of poor Beast Boy, missing him out, but are four of the best characters that DC have. So I worry how you're going to do that in a film because they're big characters that need a lot of attention. Their stories are quite different, and I think that's the problem with the Titans TV show. It was missing Cyborg. He should have been there. I love that Fab Five of Robin or Nightwing, Cyborg, Starfire, Raven, and Beast Boy. I like that lineup. So that's the lineup I would go for the film, and maybe have flashbacks to the original team. That's how I would do that. But I'm excited. I'm excited for the DCU, and I want it to succeed because what will happen is if Superman flops, they'll release the other films that are doing it, but then I think they'll just concentrate on standalone films. I think the Joker 2 not being a success shocks them, and they're kind of in a problem now because the Batman was a success, but the Penguin show has been so successful that they're now kind of
You're
they're
fine.
now
She's just sitting right here watching.
yeah. I think the Penguin show was so successful. People want more of the Batman now, and I do worry that he's throwing too much out there. So there's going to be Clayface, that's going to be body horror. There's this superpowers cartoon that's got the most weird selection of characters I've ever seen. There's a lot going on, and that's why I say maybe he needs someone to wheel him in a little bit. But we're getting content. It's great.
I like all the things he announced were exciting, but I was like, you guys just started. You
Yeah.
don't know what
No.
you can handle,
No.
but you announced a lot of things, but at the same time, you announced 3 projects that were struggling. So it's
Yeah.
like, I like the transparency,
Yeah.
but I don't like how much you put out because yes, all these things are amazing, but you want 6 different projects a year.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. There's 12 months in a year, man.
Yeah.
So I'd say like give it a year, see what your team is comfortable with.
Yeah.
No shame in that, but also don't force these things to come out
No.
because James Gunn, I respect James Gunn. I like him. I like what he does, but I do think he's an egomaniac.
Yeah.
So
I did.
instead of
Yeah.
yeah, so instead of being wrong about some things that won't he was excited to announce that won't end up coming out, I think he'll say like, "I'll just put it out there anyways." So that's what I'm kind of
Yeah.
worried about that we'll get these projects that are pretty half-assed when I was like, you should have just taken the time. We have nothing but time. We are fine.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm upset that the Wonder Woman game has been cancelled. She's one of my favourite heroes. Even when I was young, I was confused why a Greek warrior woman was dressed in the stars and stripes and had an American accent, and we've we've moved on from that now, and the Wonder Woman game is. I like my video games. I'm not very good at video games, so the Lego games are kind of my skill set. So the Lego Avengers game is one of my favorite games ever because it had so many different Avengers that people wouldn't have heard of as unlockables. I love that. Mortal Kombat, Injustice, anything like that. But I would have gotten the Wonder Woman game, and apparently they spent 100. I don't know if that's true. 100 million on the Wonder Woman game just to can it.
That's what I've heard,
Yeah,
and I
that's a
didn't know
lot
that.
of money.
I don't really game, so I'm like, is that like a thing? But turns out, according to Gail Simone, who writes the new Uncanny
Yeah,
X
yeah,
Men,
yeah,
she was a
yeah.
consultant on
I
it. She was
heard.
like,
Yeah,
this was such a beautiful game. We put so much work into it, but like she said so many things, and in my head, I'm like, but you haven't said a single thing about the story or the gameplay.
right, right.
So there's that.
Yeah. I mean, Warner Brothers make very bizarre choices. I mean, they're the ones that I did some. He-Man and Masters of the Universe and She-Ra, another franchise that I'm obsessed with. And I mean, crazy, insane. I love every version of it. Maybe not New Adventures that came out in the 90s. That was a bit bad. But all the others, the CGI reboot that was recently, I can't wait for the movie. So that got me to thinking of Thundercats. Who owns Thundercats? Warner Brothers. But they do nothing with it. It's so bizarre. It's
Huh.
there's stuff that they know that people want, but they don't do it, and I'd love to ask why. Maybe it's an ego thing. I know what will sell. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in that, so other people wouldn't be wouldn't be interested in that. But I do find that I'm wondering about Thor. This is difficult to say. Thor 5. Um, will Hercules finally be in it? Because that's another thing.
I don't know.
Just at least we're getting to, because obviously the new Vision appeared ages ago, and people have been wondering what. But he's got his show coming out, the third in the trilogy of Wonder Vision. Um, yeah, are they doing anything with Clea, Midnight Suns, Blade? I mean, how have you messed up Blade?
They still don't have a writer. It's been like 2 years.
I just think it's so bizarre. Like he's in the zeitgeist, but he's popular. Like this should be relatively easy. I mean, I don't know. I heard that the show was centered on his daughter. I don't know if that's what people want. Like, I'm not even a fan of Superman having kids. I don't really like. I liked it when he was raising Zod's kids, Chris Kent, in a couple of continuities ago. But having his own kid, Jonathan Kent, I don't know. I'm more interested in the original character of Blade rather than his daughter for the moment. We've got
Yeah.
time for his kid. Let's just
I think that rumor was just a rumor
ah
because nothing was ever confirmed. But at the same time, it was like his daughter's really cool. His daughter's really cool. She, Brielle Brooks, Bloodline. That's her
oh,
name.
that's it. I was trying to yeah.
Yeah, she's really cool. She's a great comic character. But I agree, we're not there.
No, we're not there yet. Let's just do Blade. I mean, it was nice to see Wesley Snipes in Deadpool 3. I didn't love the film. I know everyone went crazy for it. Obviously, I love Hugh, but he wasn't that Wolverine, so I was a bit like, oh, which I'm pleased with because they gave that Wolverine an ending. But I also, I get a lot of stick for this. I didn't like Logan. that
I
much.
didn't either.
I didn't think it was as good as
Oh,
everybody said.
no, it's not. It was a downer.
Yeah, yeah. I just
Yeah.
so they do a new timeline where the X-Men don't die, only for Professor X to kill them because he's got dementia, and then the villain is a clone, is another clone. I was like, oh, yeah, yeah, okay, and that's the end of the Fox universe. Like, yeah, I get that it was violent and it was gritty, and that's what people wanted. But I mean, I've started to slightly have a worrying suspicion that my taste in movies may not be the best. I like Supergirl, the film. It's one of my favourite films. I love Masters of the Universe, the film. It's one of my favourite films. I love Spice World, the movie. It's one of my all-time favourite
Iconic.
films. Like, it's the only film I saw 3 times at the cinema. So, I enjoyed Love and Thunder, but I hated Ragnarok. I,
What?
I make it make sense.
Yeah, I don't like either, so I can't say anything. But like,
Like,
I don't. I haven't heard of someone saying like, "I like this one, but I don't like her."
isn't that weird? I find
I,
myself watching Love and Thunder a lot, and I think I quite liked what they did with Gore because I haven't read the book, and I think if I read the book, I'm going to be like, oh,
It'll ruin it.
yeah, I think so.
Yep.
I think so.
Yeah.
I liked, I liked his shadow monsters, and I liked his glowing eyes, and I liked the sword. But I think if I read that, that might. I loved. See, I read The Mighty Thor, and I loved Jane Foster's tenure as Thor. So maybe that influenced my love for it a little bit. But I do think that maybe my taste in films isn't as conventional as other people's.
It shouldn't be though. It's
No,
what you like.
I mean, it's like people keep going on about the Winter Soldier. I like the Winter Soldier. Don't get me wrong. I like it. You know, first outing of Sam as Falcon, the return of Bucky, the friendship between Natasha and Steve. Steve's costume, his Captain America costume, I liked that. But when I rewatched it, I was like, I'm bored. I'm a bit bored. So I need something to yeah. Another film that I like, which is terrible but I adore, is Ultraviolet.
Not
So
sure what is that.
it's a comic book film based on a character that's not from the comic book, and it's the woman that plays Alice in the Resident Evil films. I can't remember her name. Oh,
Oh,
I
what
might.
is her name?
Yeah, I will shout it out at some stage. And it's a terrible film, but I absolutely love it. So that's where this, oh dear, I think I like terrible films has come from. But I think, I will die on that hill. I'll die on all of those hills. I love
Is
it.
it Mila?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Jovovich. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm not
and
saying that.
and the opening credits for Ultraviolet has her comics, which don't exist, by
Oh,
actual comic book artists, and you'll be able to see their names signed on it, and you'll recognise the art style. So that was really cool. But
that is cool.
whether it's a good film, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. But yeah, I think I like to see people's support of film. The new Captain America film has been interesting to see. I don't like the new costume. I like the white costume that he had in the TV show because that's the costume he has in the comics, and that's why I like that. I haven't seen it yet because the bloody cinema has fallen apart, but I will do because it's the closest Eternal sequel we're going to get. They address the
Yeah.
Tiamat coming out. But it's been interesting to see people really wanting it to fail.
Yeah.
It's not my captain. Well, it doesn't. Well, first of all, none of them are. They don't exist. But I like Sam as Captain America. I liked him in the comics as Captain America. I liked him when he was in the Avengers as Captain America. Do I think there should be two Captain Americas? No, I know this is gonna people aren't gonna like this. I think Steve should become something else, maybe the Super Soldier, or I don't know. I don't know, but
Well, he's not Captain America now. I
no,
think he's coming back for Doomsday, and I think he's coming back as Agent Hydra.
I think so as well. I
Yeah.
think so. I mean, hasn't he said no? He's not. But I mean, they say that, don't they? They go, "I'm not in the movie. I'm not in the movie," and then they are actually in the movie.
We've all been Garfielded. Like,
So, yeah,
we're,
exactly. It's CGI. They've edited me in. No, um, yeah, I think that it's difficult, isn't it? Because people don't want to move on, and I'm such a hypocrite because I don't like change and I don't want to move on. But my favourite Marvel film is Eternals, which is completely different to the source material. I mean, they're not even humans in it. That's been changed by the Celestials. They're robots. Like people were like, how can you not like change? But you know. So I don't like change, but I'm also not somebody that holds on to. Iron Man was the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Iron Man was amazing. But I have such deep cut favourites. Listen, I supported Madam Web because it had Julia Carpenter in it. I mean,
God.
you know, I've rewatched it because of those 5 second clips where you see her with her powers. Because I love the first two Spider Women. I was crazy about. Again, Secret Wars. Julia first appeared in Secret Wars. Jessica had the Spider Woman cartoon. So you know, there is that. But I want that's what I want to see. Captain America isn't really my favorite hero. I like Steve. I like Tony. You know, but I do think that there are more interesting stories to tell. You know, they've admitted X Men will be their new focus, and I think maybe that's right. It's a shame because don't forget, I remember when the Avengers, liking the Avengers when you were a kid in the 90s was a weird thing to do. You like the X Men because of the cartoon, you like Spider Man because of the cartoon. Who likes the Avengers? I love the Avengers. I loved it when they all had the bomber jackets. I loved, yeah, I just loved. I loved Avengers West Coast. Loved it all, and so it was interesting to see the Avengers become a household name. It was a surreal moment because people cared about Captain America. Do you know how weird that is? And Captain America has evolved. Like people kept saying, "Oh, Steve is always Captain America." I remember when Captain America was a proud Republican in the comics. He stood for conservative values. Um, you
But
know,
then Arnie Hall came and
yeah,
changed his
yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And now we're talking about characters like that. So I think characters do evolve, and I do like legacy characters. The problem is you'll have a legacy character replaced. My favourite Batman is when Dick Grayson took over and Damian was his sidekick because it was such something different. You had an optimistic Batman where Bruce Wayne, Batman was the real personality. With Dick Grayson, Batman was the mask he put on. That wasn't who he was. And, you know, I love that. And I do like legacy. I love legacy characters. But the problem is then when they're replaced, you'll get like there's two Flashes now. My Flash is Wally West, but Barry Allen is so popular because of the TV show, and I like Barry. I really like Barry. But my Flash is Wally West. And yeah, so there's two Flashes. That's not a big deal. There's two main Spider Men, along with Spider Gwen. You know, there's two Captain Americas. But I do I don't know if it's an autistic thing. I do find it. I get frustrated with overcrowding of characters. So when they're constantly introducing new characters, and I'm still waiting for the original New Warriors to get back together because that's one of my favourite comic books of all time. And we're just getting new teams, new teen teams, and I'm like, I want to see the new Warriors back together with Rage. But I think we love nostalgia is a hell of a drug, and I
Yeah.
think that's why they sell it. That's why it sold, because we want the things that we enjoyed back when maybe life was simpler, or that got us through a hard time, or do you know what I mean? Like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, the cartoon. I can't begin to tell you the impact that had on me. It was just, yeah, it was huge, and I'd love to see the next Spider-Man film, him being in college with Firestar and Iceman. Probably won't happen, but that's what I would like to see. But I think newer fans will go back and watch that and be like, "What? It's
Yeah.
it's not anything." But you have to understand, we didn't have a lot back then, so to have stuff like that in syndication was really really big. I can't begin to tell you the X-Men film that came out. It was so surreal to have an X-Men film, big because of the popularity of the cartoon, and I supported it. It's still one of my favorite films. Is it a good X-Men film? I don't know if I would say that, but I mean, I liked the team of Jean, Storm, Logan, and Scott. I liked that team, but the X-Men films. Again, first class. Everyone loves it. I don't rate it at all. I don't rate it at all. I loved Days of Future Past. I loved that. And then, they just got worse. I did enjoy New Mutants, despite the fact it was problematic. And I get why it was problematic. But I think my joy was seeing those characters represented, because I love the New Mutants team. So I'm of an age of enjoy every crumb that you get, because you just didn't know where, we get so much content now. You just didn't get that, and I remember when I was younger, I had boyfriends that were not weirded out, but why do you watch cartoons at 22? Why are you collecting comic books at 22? It just wasn't a done thing. So to see the rise of superheroes to such an extent, yeah, it's been great. We've been eating great.
But yeah. I think we've really talked about so many amazing things. This has been so great to get to know you. I learned a lot about you, and it's a fun. Like it's nice. We agree on so many things, and no one ever agrees with me. So this is so nice.
Sorry if I rabbited on. I do get, yeah,
Oh no,
carried
it's a
away.
podcast. You're supposed to. You're perfectly fine. So before we sign off, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Okay, so if you go to gadio.co.uk, I have a show on there. Just Google Andy Quick, and you'll hear one of my the past shows are uploaded. It's a dance channel, but we play pop, but very queer content. So check me out on that.
I love that. Whoever is listening, if you look in the show notes, you will see a link to where you can find Andy Quick,
Thank you very much.
and definitely recommend because he's amazing.
Ah, bless you. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I've
Of
loved it.
course.
Sorry, I've rabbited on, but it's been great.
It has. You're welcome back anytime.
Ah, thank
You're
you very
amazing.
much. Thank you.
Welcome.
Take care.
So, thank you for listening to this episode of Vigilante Vibes. Wherever you're listening, click that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my amazing guests like Andy or any future episode. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a marvelous day.